I think like the direction thing was like much more something that I eventually wanted to do, and I feel like the acting thing I just kind of stumbled upon. It's been much more fulfilling, I think, being a director. And this particular story really stuck with me about like this boy who was scared, and they did this planchet on him. There was this false prophecy which he made come true. And I just like somehow I could really relate to the story, and there was this, some kind of like just almost like a creepy melancholic element to this story which really appealed to me, and it just stayed with me. In fact, I used to keep thinking I'll tell somebody else to write it for me, but because I had everything out in my head, whatever writer friends I approached, they were all like, you must write it because you already know what you want to say.
As you said, like you had the story for so long with,
Yeah.
with yourself, and did you know these characters that you then wrote? How did you go about writing these characters and their interaction? Like,
That's very interesting because firstly, though, I had more characters to begin with. And luckily, after the first draft, I sent the script to this NFDC script lab. And I had a fantastic mentor called Martin Rabarts who really helped me, like, streamlined it in a way. Like, that was draft 1, and then ultimately the shooting script was the draft 7. We got rid of like 2-3 other characters, which is great because already there were so many characters and it's not even practical. Like, it was really difficult to shoot. I used to really crave for the days where I had just 1-2 actors, because there used to be like 10-11, including like Manjari and Manya and all. There were like 10-11 people and the house was very small and it was just very difficult. I actually didn't know these people. They're all different aspects of me, all of them. Mostly, I feel like I'm Shutu. So there was a real person called Shutu who actually died. So what I did was, when I was writing, it's so blurred because it's kind of a mix of, like, some characters are like a mix of, it's memory as well as like real life people who I knew, and also amalgamations of people. So like Nandu, the father of Tani, is actually kind of my dad, also my cousin. Tani, the little girl, is kind of my older sister, but also kind of me. While writing it only, I found that, it loses a sense of immediacy, which the whole day 1, day 2 really, like, that helps. Create a sense of urgency, create a sense of what's going to happen, or some kind of suspense. But because it's just 1 week and they all know each other, we just have to infer everything, because they are not going to ask each other, so what do you do? Or, you can't keep giving exposition, and you can't keep explaining things because everybody already knows everything about. So I had to just trust that would come through.
Throughout the film, there are a lot of animals shown. Like from the starting, the frog is supposed to don't kill it in the bathroom. Then you have the moth. You have another insect in the where Sutu and Tani are sitting. In the end, you have the wolf. I don't know like exactly what the wolf signifies there. It's his weakest moment. And you have such a powerful animal there.
A lot of it is planned and a lot of it is not planned also. It's so amazing that while I was going up the steps, I actually saw this moth on the steps while going up, and there was no plan to have a moth in the scene. I found the moth amazingly, so we just kept it in that and just decided to use it in the scene. It's amazing when you go to a real location and the things that happen, and to be just open to those experiences and how to incorporate them into the film. I was really happy with that coincidence. But coming to the wolf, I actually stole the idea from a friend. At the lab, there was one girl who told us a story about how she and her sister went for a walk and she fell into a hole and nobody could find her for some time. That was the story, which I just loved the idea. Somehow I just knew that, it should happen to Shutu. It really worked for me, like nobody, like that people would not miss him immediately, that he would actually be placed, that his isolation would be, seen physically. And I had always wanted to incorporate hunting. Shutu also feels hunted because of his state of mind and his interaction with other people. Like, he often feels like he's preyed upon or he's hunted by other people. And I just like the idea of an exchange between like a non-verbal and some kind of communication between these two different species. And it's just that the wolf recognizes that this is a person who doesn't have the power to hurt me. And I think for Shutu also it is, because it's almost like a manifestation of his worst fears. But actually his worst fear really is of himself, you know, because it's nothing outside. It's also himself and his own state of mind that brings him down. I mean, these are kind of the thoughts around it. It's not like I had very clear, like I was like, oh, this has to be accomplished.
As an actor turned director, like how do you direct your actors in this space?
You know, I wrote the script almost like it's edited already.
Yeah.
There would be 6 nights total, and few of the nights would have some animals. And I did shoot some of it. On the last night, Shutu was supposed to be in that shot. So it was supposed to be the same shot of the house from far away. And only on the last night, Shutu was supposed to be in the shot because it's like he's crossed over to the other world. But it's so weird that when we took that shot, and Shutu was just leaning against a tree, it's almost a silhouette. I didn't realize it at the monitor, but ultimately when I saw it, when we were putting the footage together, like there's something a little casual about the way he's leaning on the tree. So it didn't translate, you know, the feeling that I wanted, it didn't come through. So I had to scrap that whole idea, which was really sad. So that was one thing which it was there in the script. It must be there in the script, yeah. That's something which didn't happen. But otherwise, a lot of stuff is already written into the script, whether it's the chair in that sex scene, or you know, like the other, like the frog. Actually, the frog comes in 3 times, but I felt like am I being overindulgent, and I think I ultimately kept it twice. In terms of directing actors, I think that for me it was very helpful having been an actor. A, being on set, B, being able to focus when things are chaotic, that kind of stuff really helped me. Also, many times just doing the thing myself, because also the dialogues are written by me and my associate Disha Rindani. Like sometimes we were able to block the scene with actors, but like sometimes we were not able to because of time, or the space is so constrained and we have to have this thing in the background, so it has to be set up like this. You know, there are these things also. Also, it's helpful, you know, as an actor. So if I ask somebody to do something, ask an actor to do something, I can actually try it out myself, like physically try it out and see if it's working, or if it's weird to, you know, make that turn and it should be actually it's more normal to sit. Like with those kinds of things, the physicality of it, I found very convenient to just do it and check.
So you didn't consider changing your location?
UP gives this subsidy, okay? If you shoot there, then they give you like, I don't know, like 1 crore or some ridiculous amount. They give you 2 crores or something. So obviously my producers were very keen that I shoot in UP, and nobody's really shot in McCluskeyganj. So McCluskeyganj really flourished early. It was called Mini London. It was set up in 33 or something like that, and it for a while it was all hunky-dory with all of the post-colonial charm of hunting and badminton and rose gardens and tea parties. Those houses were fantastic because they are just houses which have been left to often the Adivasi caretakers. It was very difficult to shoot there. We couldn't even house our crew there. We actually had to live in Ranchi. We had to travel 1.5 hours going and coming. So 3 hours a day we would travel. I mean, some key crew did stay in McCluskeyganj. The DOP did stay there because he often had to pre-light and stuff. But most of us lived in Ranchi because there was no place to actually stay there. What we did is we asked them to send us pictures of McCluskeyganj ostensibly for research. The photographs just blew us away. It blew our minds because it was decrepit, it was beautiful, it had so much character, and it was exactly what we were looking for. So we said, okay, let's just go there and see. And they kept saying, no, but we can't shoot there, we can't shoot there. So then when we went there, I think it was just plain to everyone that, oh my God, we'll have to shoot here because nothing else is working as well as this is working. The house that we found actually belonged to a colonel, and we even used his nameplate because originally I think they were Sharmas, but the house actually belonged to a Colonel Bakshi, and they actually had a really old nameplate which we've used in the film because it was lying there in some corner because they are also, they don't live there anymore. The daughter comes to visit sometimes, kind of thing. She lives abroad. Then when I went there and I saw that house, I was like, and the rooms were connected. There was the common bathroom between Shutu's room and Nandu's room. There was the back kind of a balcony kind of thing. Everything was connected. Like it was like I had it in mind. Even when they went to take photographs and stuff, and I hadn't been in 30 years because I had last been there when I was 6 or something. And I went back for my recce. And before me, the EPs who went there first, they were like, they said it's really uncanny because did you remember stuff? Because because of the stories I'd heard, etc. You know, I had very specific things, and those things were actually, you know, existing there. Yeah. So I couldn't change the house because of the train tracks. Basically, is what I want to say.
Puri and Kalki Kuchi. They hardly ever interact during the film. Can you talk a little about their relationship?
Within that world, so I always thought of it like a triangle with Shutu on top. And then just below was Vikram and Nandu and Mimi. And then below that was everyone else. Below that is with the parents, and below that is with Manjari and Manya as well. Even though it's just like whatever those 7-8 people, within that world they have their own worlds. But actually their worlds don't interact that much, and I felt like it never occurred to me really, because I think organically and naturally their worlds don't hugely intersect. I mean, there were little bits which may have been edited out, but they don't really hugely intersect in any case. I mean, I don't know why that is. I think that's partly because of age, the age gap, partly it's gender, because you don't very automatically befriend a younger woman or a much older man. It doesn't happen very easily.
After watching your film, I could sort of like just interpret it like this about Elliness of these characters. Like when Tani was missing, to some extent, like or in a dinner.
That's right.
Where people go and like,
Yeah.
So like, what are your inspirations in Ellie?
So, you know, after I wrote the script, a few people told me that it's like about Ellie. And I don't feel like the films talk about the same kinds of things.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of films where people, that's also an accepted trope, no? That people go somewhere and then something happens. The film that was a huge inspiration for me for this was Picnic at Hanging Rock. Loved the mysteriousness of that and the mood of it. So I think that would be my biggest inspiration in terms of films.
So how many producers would you talk to through the film?
I had initially approached like a number of producers, Viacom, Balaji, etc. Like, and I'm very lucky, I'm very privileged, because I'm known or because my mom is known, I can get a meeting. But I didn't get any funding from any of these meetings. Hani Trehan, who was with Vishal Bharadwaj on his team, and he was originally a casting director, he approached me to act in another film that he was producing, and he was going to produce for the first time. And I half jokingly said, "Arey, why don't you produce my film? I'm looking for producers." And I was also like not very actively, in a very driven manner, looking for producers. And so he said, okay, send it to me, and I'll read it. And he read it and he liked it. And to his credit, like, he finished it I think in a day, and he from the first day said, I'm producing it. So I didn't even take him very seriously, actually. I was like, oh, that's great, that's great. And I was also still kind of vaguely looking for producers, asking around, whatever. And then I asked him, I said, down the line I asked him, and I said, are you producing it? And then one day he said, on the phone, he said, Coco, no, I am the producer. He had to tell me, I am the producer, I will produce this film. I couldn't believe it. So I said, great. And he also hasn't produced before, so I didn't know how serious he was. And he and Abhishek Chaubey, who was also with Vishal's team initially, who directed the Director of Ishqiya, etc., came up with their own company, MacGuffin. And this was their first film, so they got financiers.
Do you also ask yourself this question when you have a story, okay, I have to make this in a film, or it cannot be? Can it be more justified through a story, through a novel?
See, I never had any axe on my head that I have to make a film. You know, there was nothing like that. Unlike you guys, you have to, I guess, make a film if you're film students. I actually started writing it out as a story only. Initially, I was just writing. I never really thought seriously that I could make a film or that I would make a film. One day, when I already had a fair amount of the story, which I didn't know what it was going to be, whether it's going to be a story or a short story or a novel or a script, I didn't know what it was going to be. One day where I really thought, oh my God, this could be a film. Like, this actually could, like, it could be a film that maybe I would watch.
When did you get this confidence that whatever you have written is now universal?
Yeah. So see, the first time around now, it may not come. Like, my first draft is very different from my draft 7. So even if you don't have it the first time around, you will get there. Like, I mean, you will eventually, you have to keep playing with it like a Rubik's Cube. So it came out one way, and then because I would revisit it and go back, like for example, the kid disappearing. It's an extraneous thing I've put inside. It's really a device. And I was so thrilled because I was like, oh yes, this is what can happen. And just because something is written down doesn't mean it's sacred and holy and has to be there forever at all. So when you are rewriting, you have to a little bit forget that, because otherwise you'll keep wanting to use the same sentence structure, you'll keep wanting to use that paragraph. You have to forget that. I had to be like, okay, I know this is done, but I'm not committed to it. You know, I have to rework it because I want to introduce this element and this feeling. So I have to again do this. And then from there, and because you're thinking all the time about it, then from there only you can get to another interesting point. Like the day 1, day 2.
So we also have this question, once you're writing something, you're revealing too much of yourself.
I feel like this film, at least up until this point, is my identity. Because it's my first film, what I don't know, I've put so much of myself into the film. None of the films that I've acted in have ever, like, I can't ever say that this is me, you know, but I can say that about Death in the Gunj. I feel like this is me. So when I was writing some scenes, I'd be like, should I write this? What will people think? And then I think I had to dismiss it. I dismissed that eventually. And it helped that my protagonist was male and much younger. It helped that it was ostensibly about something else. You must reveal yourself. It's fine, because everything, all of life is just an expression of yourself.
So was the script written in such intricate detail that the actors got to know exactly how to do it without much blocking, or was it? Did you encourage improv, or were they just thinking like you and you got what you wanted?
So what I did was I actually read with all my actors. Firstly, a lot of the actors read their own, had their own copies and read their own script themselves. I also did narrations because I think that you can get a certain sur of a scene from a narration that I do, like of a scene if I read it the way I want it. Because there's so many different ways to do it. My thing is like, you know, it doesn't even matter what you say, but this feeling should come through. We did workshops with Atul Mongia. He actually, you know, in our rehearsal space, we made it very cold. So people would come in their jackets. So to give them the feel. So this is in Bombay, to give them the feel that we're in McCluskey-Ganj and it's very cold. And I wanted that condensation of breath when you're talking. But it got very late and we only got a little bit in the beginning when we were shooting. Because we were shooting Feb, I think end Jan, Feb, March it became. So by the end of it, it was almost hot in the daytime, in Jharkhand, early March. So that helped. The narration, I did reading separately with separate actors, especially with Shutu, but also with other actors. So I spent a lot of time in prep. So that's the thing now, when you have very little money, very little time, very small budgets, your prep has to be fantastic.
Did you make this consciously about mental health, the way, like, or it just happened to be about mental health? I think the film somewhere it ends up being about that, and there's a lot of, like, especially today, how people are so isolated and like how we interact with each other. It's so much about that.
I wanted to see how these characters behave and influence each other, and what I found very interesting actually, and I feel that it's not just the men. I feel the women also do that to him. Because none of them are bad people actually. Like nobody's really committing a crime, or nobody's really like a terribly evil or malicious, like nobody's intention is bad. And this is the thing which, you know, really interested me, that the everyday cruelty of life, the casual cruelty that we all unknowingly, knowingly inflict on people around us. In a group you'll find, within a family or in a group you'll find often, you know, some people can get away with some behaviors. Why? It's just that, you know, how we allow these group dynamics to form, these power equations to form, who we allow certain people to get away with certain behavior, we allow other people to speak certain things, you know, why we allow these things, and you know, this is the kind of thing I wanted to kind of examine. And through this, many things came out, and I don't think that the women are exempt from it at all. I think that Mimi and Bonnie and the aunt do expect him to behave in a certain way. The thing is, when people don't behave in ways that are expected of them, it's actually very threatening to other people. That threat makes you insecure, and that often comes across, insecurity often comes across as aggression. So I feel that has happened here.
There is this poem while Tani is on the swing, but it only goes till 6 years. So when actually Tani goes missing, I felt like, okay, Tani is going to die.
Yeah,
because
that was the purpose.
Yeah, why that reference again and again?
Firstly, I'm the kind of person who gets scared very easily. And I can make myself scared very easily. Like I can just think of things and I can scare other people also. And I enjoy it. It's set up to a certain extent like a supernatural thing. Not a thriller, I don't know what to call it. Like there's an element of the supernatural and it's set up like that. Because you know that's the way we are conditioned. You show me, give me some shots, I'll conjecture some things, you know. But the thing is, it's actually a psychological thriller. Actually, it's not supernatural. But I wanted to push that a little bit because it's fun and because I wanted to do that thing of like setting up for one thing and providing another thing.
Can you talk something about casting?
I actually don't think of casting early at all. It's always later. Because first this person has to completely emerge, na? The character has to completely emerge. Then I have to see who else it's going to be for me. That was one thing. Vikrant I was quite sure of early on. I had seen Vikrant in Lutera. There's a film called Lutera and even though he has a very small role in Lutera, I was really struck by his persona. Tilottama is the other actor who I knew I wanted for Bonnie. Also because I knew that I didn't want a very matronly kind of a mother because I feel like mothers are always depicted very similarly again and again. And even grandmothers, like I wanted that grandmother also to be not, you know, to be smoking and to just like have short hair and like not be, you know, because we keep seeing the same kind of grandmother and mother. And even Ranveer Shori who did Vikram, I knew I wanted Ranveer for Vikram. So these three I actually knew who I wanted. And it's amazing that my producers let me.
Whenever we are writing a script, the family plays an important role in describing the character. But when we talk about Shuttu, what was the conscious decision behind this case? We won't discuss the family much.
It never occurred to me that there was any need to show any other family to explain his state of mind. I wanted a certain alienation for him. Like, you know, his dad has died. With his dad dying, a certain identity of his has gone. Like a certain element of his identity. And he obviously can't really relate to his mother, which hopefully is evident from the letter and the phone call. He doesn't want to go back to Bardhaman, where and you know, like that world is something he's very alienated from that world.
When you sit down with an actor, how much the actor brings a part of himself or herself into the character and how much do you allow to make changes in the characters?
If you know, and that's amazing, if you know what you want, I think that's the main thing in like this whole thing. If you know what you want, if the actor is bringing something that is conveniently working for you, great. If it's not, then you'll have to say that no, I don't want this. If I'm supposed to be in a really bad mood or if I'm really stressed out or unhappy as the role that I'm supposed to play as an actor, I will use an incident in my regular life, which maybe I could have handled just perfectly, but I'll make it a little extra, you know, because I'll be like, no, now, you know, and I'll make it whatever, you know, and just mess up that whole situation to use it here. I realize that I do this. I mean, as a director, so you'll have to say that, you know, this is how I'm seeing, we must have this feeling, we don't want, if you do this, then it's giving me this impression, which is not correct. So, you'll have to figure it out together.
I want to know the relationship between, what kind of relation was between Tani and Shuttu.
I too feel that theirs is the central romance of the film. Yeah. And I think it is because Shuttu is generous with himself and generous with his time. And Tani also doesn't really expect him to conform to any kind of behavior. He doesn't have to perform in any particular way, you know, to keep that. And I think it's relaxing and it's safe for both of them.
What was your inspiration to write this character?
I don't know what the inspiration, like it's not like one point, like one specific thing like that, which is an inspiration. I had heard that he was in love with an older woman. And so I imagined the rest. I also feel that very rarely do we see women using sex, substituting sex for something else. We very rarely see that on screen. For me, it was very clear that she was drunk. She wanted attention from Vikram. She didn't get it. And she just substituted it.
And how long did you take to write your script? And one more question.
Yeah.
15 Buck Avenue, what
Yeah.
was the end?
I had been thinking in my head for many months and maybe even years without being aware of it. It came to a time where I could actually give a narration to somebody like 45 minutes to an hour without really having written more than 2-3 pages. So it took a month to come to write the very basic first draft. But you know, then the 7th draft is difficult to say, because sometimes it was a major change, like for example, and sometimes it's not. For example, we went there and found out that they couldn't have phones at home. So I had to write that post office sequence, which was great. This is why research is so amazing, because it gives you so much stuff to work with. The ending of 15 Park Avenue, a film that I acted in, she's asking what was the meaning of the end in 15 Park Avenue. Again, it's something that, you know, you have to take whatever meaning you want from it. I think that because we were talking about the nature of reality and what is real and what is not, it's in a way a departure from that reality. And, you know, we're constantly talking about everybody else's, whatever our notion of reality is. And so we just take a leap of faith and we go into her reality.